All right, it's 8:30. I want to call this special call meeting of the Simpson County Fiscal Court to order. As most of you know, we will only be allowed to discuss the 5 topics that are on the agenda and things that are related to those 5 topics. I do want to ask our county attorney if he would just open us with a word of prayer before we start this meeting.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today thankful for all the many blessings that you have given to each of us individually, as a community, as a commonwealth, and as a nation. I know during these times it's kind of difficult to focus on the blessings, but that's all the more important that we do so. Also want to ask that you bless this group as they undertake the business of the county today. Give them wisdom and discernment to do what is right for the common good. Also ask that you bless, keep, and take care of our first responders, tending to our sick and injured. Always look after our veterans and those who wear the uniform in harm's way. Ask that you forgive us of all our sins. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. All right, gentlemen, I appreciate y'all being able to meet today. Obviously, the budget discussion is our big topic as we're under a timeline.
Want to do the pledge?
Oh, we can. We'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. As I was saying, gentlemen, I appreciate y'all being able to adjust your schedules to meet today. Budget is our big topic, but we do have 4 items of business that are a little time sensitive, so we needed to get them in on this meeting also. First of which is advertising for the budget hearing regarding the county road aid and the local government economic assistance. We refer to it as the LGEA. It's mineral severance that Simpson County collects on a quarterly basis, and those funds are used for public transportation and asphalt on county roads. And then the county road aid we refer to as CRA, as funds that are used for the construction and reconstruction and maintenance of county roads. Typically 60% of those funds are available in August, and then the remaining funds available in January through February. Well, except for 3% of the funds is placed in emergency and 3% is placed in a fund for emergencies for participants to apply for in case of an emergency. The public hearing is for the public to have input or say on what we do, how we expend that money. Obviously, with the public gathering restrictions that we still have from the state, we can't necessarily call a public hearing meeting. We have to have a public hearing. We can't invite the public. So we have to advertise this, give an opportunity for the public to send in any questions or comments they have, but then we have to come back and in a live called session, have a public hearing, at which time we would read or discuss any questions or comments that we received. If we don't receive comments or questions, we would call the public hearing to order, simply state we have no comments, and we would close the public hearing. So we need to establish a date and time. We've set it for Friday, May 22nd at 8:30 a.m., and I would need to know that at least 2 of you could be here so we have a quorum to have the meeting.
What time, Mason?
8:30 a.m. Of course, we meet, our regular scheduled court meeting is next Tuesday the 19th, so it would be that Friday of that same week at 8:30.
Is there not enough advertising time to get it in?
Not enough advertising time to get it in and do it by the 19th. That was the issue.
Because this will take probably about 2 minutes.
At all of 2 minutes, and that's what I'm saying. I just need to know that at least 2 of you can be here so we.
I can be here.
Okay. So I just need a motion and a second that we advertise the CRA and LGEA public hearing and set a meeting time and date of Friday, May 22nd, 2020 at 8:30 a.m. Central Time.
Motion made.
Got a motion by Nate, second by Scott. All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right. This is another one that was time sensitive. We done this last year, and we didn't have the information for our May 12th meeting, but we needed to get this on. If y'all recall, last year, we done an interlocal agreement with the city of Franklin that they participate in our asphalt bid, and so we could try to get a greater, to hopefully get a better advertising price. We done that as a one-year interlocal agreement. They asked, would we consider doing a 5-year so we didn't have to do this agreement every single year. The terms of the agreement are no different from last year's agreement, with the exception of it being for a 5-year period rather than a 1 year. The county advertised for the bids, the county receives the bids, the county accepts the bids, and the city pretty much just goes along with what we accept. So if there's no question or concern, we just need a motion and a second to enter this interlocal agreement and authorize the judge to sign that agreement.
You got a resolution first, I think.
Do we have to do the resolution first? Okay.
Do they turn in an amount, the city?
Yes, they will give us an amount that we add to the bid specs.
Okay, because we just advertised for bids for asphalt and gravel, didn't we?
We authorize to advertise, and that advertisement will go in next week.
It'll be in, this week's paper, but
And then we'll have,
it will have this,
yeah,
the same as last year.
yeah.
So we're the same.
And then I think we required the bids to be in, was it by May the 29th?
Yes.
I think that's right.
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. The only reason I was asking if they turned in an amount. Do we put down an amount for, that's what I was thinking, so Bobby was shaking his head no.
Yeah, I
If-
mean, they give us an amount. I don't know that that matters.
I just didn't know if it would matter on,
But the bidder
Bidder
did last
part of
year,
it.
and we'll know again this year, they're bidding for the asphalt for both the city of Franklin and the Simpson County Fiscal Court.
okay.
So, okay, yeah, we would first need to have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 2020-05-12 and authorize the judge to sign that resolution. And the resolution would be to enter into the interlocal agreement.
And what was, Mason, I may have missed it, what was the reason of the 5-year?
They just so that we didn't have to go through this every year.
Okay,
And the terms won't change. I mean, the advertising for the asphalt, the collection of the bids, and the accepting of the bids will all be our responsibility.
so they'll accept whatever.
If they want asphalt,
Okay,
Only thing I would wonder is if we shouldn't do it to the end of this fiscal court term instead of obligating the next fiscal.
That's
Because
kinda
none
what
of
I'm
us may be here at the next court. You know, in an election, anybody can be replaced, so, you know, should we just do it to the end of
that would be December 31st of 2022.
so we could do a 3-year contract instead of a 5? I mean, I don't have a problem with a 5, I just hate to obligate the next fiscal court to something they might deem they don't wanna do.
I think that's very reasonable.
I mean, I'm fine with that. So, I mean, I think we could still authorize the resolution with that change in the
Yeah.
agreement.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So we need a motion and a second to authorize resolution number 2020-05-12 to enter into the interlocal agreement. And there's no dates or timelines in the resolution. It just says that we enter into the interlocal agreement. When we make the motion on the interlocal agreement, we'll amend the date on it.
So,
All right, so we got a motion by Meyer, second by Marty. All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right, then the next would be to authorize the judge to sign the interlocal agreement between the city and the county and to amend the date to read through December 31st of 2022.
so,
Motion by Meyer and second by Scott. All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Was that December, did you say December 31st?
it would run through December 31st of 2022. I think we're all still here till at least then.
God
I
willing.
know,
Yeah, we're hoping so anyhow. As Counselor said, God willing, we're all still here through December 31st of 2022. Okay, next is a discussion and possible action regarding XYZ CBD Group, Community Development Block Grant. I handed all you guys a little bit of information last week, just, for information purposes. You had a few more papers I handed you this morning. One was a legally binding agreement that was signed in August of 2020, and another was, another email that I received, talking about some other terms of this agreement. Here's the bottom line of where we're at. Obviously, there's, the XYZ CBD group has been working on or working towards a plan of putting up a hemp processing facility out in the south part of the county for, I think, a couple of years now. They first applied for a CBDG grant to do sewer and water upgrades along Steel Road. That was a $1 million grant. Now, just understand that you apply for the grants for up to $1 million. You may not use the entire $1 million, but it was a $1 million grant. Something about that application was incorrect, and we had to redo that application last year. And then as we started moving forward, it was determined that we needed this binding agreement. And if you read the parts of that binding agreement is with the XYCBD group. So here's the differences, and here's the question. Obviously, with the infrastructure part, the county is actually getting some benefit when those utilities, that infrastructure upgrade. I mean, anytime we upgrade infrastructure, there is some benefit to the county. So at the time, the feeling was that the binding agreement would be sufficient. This grant has now been changed to be the purchasing of equipment to process the hemp. So what that means is the utility upgrades are not in the discussion right now. This money would only be used for the purchase of equipment. I had a brief conversation with Mr. Nodor Giacomo yesterday, and he thinks that the cost of this equipment will roughly be $800,000. So, I mean, you're getting right up there close to that $1 million. The problem that we have, and this is something I've discussed with Sam, and he'll be able to give his opinion there. The problem that I think we have when we shift this from infrastructure to processing equipment is there's no long-term benefit to the county for processing equipment. And the situation is, if the XYZ CBD group that the binding agreement is with becomes insolvent, goes belly up, however you want to word it, Simpson County is who has applied for that grant. So if at the point they have drawn $800,000 of this money to buy that equipment, at the time they install it, run it for 6 months, we might do good to get $100,000 back out of that equipment. So the thought was we actually needed either a personal guarantee or some type of collateral other than this binding agreement, because if something were to happen there, the taxpayers of Simpson County are on the hook for hemp processing equipment. I mean, we use tax money all the time for infrastructure upgrades, and that all benefits the community. So I talked with Sam, and my opinion would be, and my thoughts would be, I think if we're going to pursue this grant, I think we need either a personal guarantee or some type of collateral that protects Simpson County for this $1 million.
This came to my attention last week when the judge brought it to my attention, and I saw some information from Mr. Leach, Industrial Authority's attorney, and who have been looking at this. And actually, credit where it's due, he was concept of a personal guarantee. Of course, he was dealing with it initially, and that there might have been some reluctance on the part of the gentleman in question about that. And my position is, and the way I read it is, I think the judge is correct in his assessment that you go in there and you don't draw up agreements. Everybody draws up agreements hoping for the best, but you gotta prepare for the worst. And that was explained to me years ago in my first semester of law school. You know, when I had a professor, I went to Ole Miss, and so he had everybody there. This guy had a pretty thick accent, and he says, when the parties drew up, of course it went south, when the parties drew up this agreement, they only had the best of intentions. And y'all know what good intentions are, don't you? Pavement to use on the road to hell. And so what I'm saying is right now, everybody's hunky-dory. It's like, you know, when you first get married, you hope for the best, but you draw up the prenuptial agreement to prepare for the worst. And this basically is sort of like akin to an unsecured debt. Yeah, it is secured would be by the equipment, but as the judge says, it's like buying a car. You drive it off the lot and depreciates. You know, as soon as you drive it off the lot, you never get back what you paid for it. And so, if everything goes hunky-dory like they say it is, then well and good. But if it doesn't, the taxpayers are on the hook for whatever the equipment doesn't bring. It's one thing, as the judge says, I agree with infrastructure. That belongs to us, the county, the people. And, you know, everybody's in favor of infrastructure. That's an easy sell to make, and we have to pay some money on I think that's a good investment with all the development going down south near Tennessee border. But I am not really keen on buying their equipment for them and then being on the hook for it without them having skin in the game. Now, I think...
And I think their claim is the binding agreement is that skin, but as I talked with the gentleman from the state, if that group were to file a bankruptcy, we're done.
Yeah, we're on the hook.
There's no collateral whatsoever. There's nothing there to back it up. And just so that you guys are aware too, I told Mr. Notar Giacomo yesterday that I was not suggesting that we do anything to him that I wouldn't suggest of a multi-billion-dollar corporation if the county was signing on a grant to purchase equipment. Infrastructure, as we've both noted, is a completely different animal than equipment. Infrastructure is good for the community. The equipment is good for that business. And I would want some type of collateral if we were signing a grant for a multi-billion-dollar corporation to purchase equipment.
But this is a state grant, right? A CDBG?
But we have to apply for it, and it is a payback grant. It's not a grant in the sense that we get $1 million and there's no payback. They use the word grant, that term's used a little loosely because it is a full payback at low interest.
Okay.
But what they have to have, if they bought the equipment, if memory serves me correctly, they needed this infrastructure to operate that facility, correct? I needed the water and the sewer.
Yeah, but they're not proceeding with that phase of the building at this time.
But they want to buy equipment
Yes.
and do what with it? And how they gonna operate without it?
I didn't meddle into the gentleman's business plan.
I think this is kind of a no-brainer on my part.
So, I mean, I just told him that we were having a special call meeting this morning and that this was a topic of discussion, and what needs to come from this is we either need to decide by motion and vote that we are good with the binding agreement as it is, proceed, or that, and I think there's actually two things that we need to have in this agreement. if you read the other note, I think that we need to have in the agreement that there is either A, a personal guarantee, or B, some type of collateral. And then the other thing, I think the lease payments should begin within at least 90 days of delivery of the equipment. Because the way this reads, it's a 7-year payback time. You could pay the interest only for 7 years.
Correct.
And have nothing paid on it after 7 years. But, so I don't think that leaving that time frame indefinite is a wise move on our part either.
I'm not sure DLG would let us do this, like this.
Like what?
Basically sign an unsecured loan. And that's basically what we're doing. I don't think Department of Local Government would.
I don't know what the DLG would do. I just know I'm not comfortable doing it.
Well, but it's gonna be in our budget, and they have to, it's gonna be on our books, and they have to approve all that. So I don't know that they would even do that.
Well, they did it last year. I mean, the grant is the same type as the
Yeah,
infrastructure.
but last year was for infrastructure, it wasn't for equipment,
Right.
and that's changed
And
now.
and that's why I'm saying, I don't know, but it's up to us today that we can make a motion in a second by vote to require that if we proceed with this, I mean, I guess we could put a few things in the vote. We could proceed with this pending sufficient guarantee and/or collateral, lease payments to begin within 90 days, and upon approval by DLG. Because you could be right, I don't know the answer to that. We could say we want collateral, we want lease payments starting in 90 days, and DLG could look at it and say, no, you're not doing this. I don't know.
Who's gonna put the power and water and stuff in? Who would pay?
According to Mr. Notar Giacomo, he's already gotten 3-phase power from Warren Rural Electric out there on site. I
Not
have,
at the manufacturing facility, but he does have it back there
yeah,
on the backside of that farm.
yeah, actually on Witt Road instead of Steel Road. I'm not comfortable proceeding as we are.
I'm not either.
I'm with you on that, Mason.
So then what I would say, then we need a motion to say that to proceed with this grant application, we will require either a personal guarantee and/or collateral equivalent to the grant, lease payments to begin within 90 days, and this application would have to be approved by DLG. Are you comfortable with that motion?
No, I'm not gonna.
Huh?
I'm gonna stop. I don't want anything to do with buying equipment, period. That's just me. I don't have any problem with infrastructure, equipment. I have a huge problem with that.
So you're saying you would prefer that we just pull out of the grant altogether?
100%.
Well, there's also, in this section where he signed on this, he's supposed to create 55 permanent full-time jobs, and,
Yeah.
none of that has been, obviously, has been done.
If you do any studying on CBD process right now, it is a losing proposition. I hate that we potentially could lose jobs, but I'm not in favor of jeopardizing taxpayers' money for equipment.
I'm not either.
Under any circumstances.
Yeah. I definitely think we need some type of security for sure. But, if the court says, if the majority opinion of the court is that we not proceed at all, I'll let whoever wants to make a motion, however you want to make it, toss it out, and we'll see what happens. I don't necessarily have a problem if we have all of the guarantees and collateral in place and payments start. But I've got to know that we've got those in place to proceed. If the majority of the court just says, heck no, we don't even want to get involved, we can do that. Because for the record, I have instructed the lady at the Brad to just put this on hold till we got back to her. So it's sitting on her desk going nowhere right now.
say, hell no, and we're backing out, that could potentially present a problem and exposure, and I'm just.
I mean, I'm okay if we get the
I'm just
proper
addressing
guarantee.
that to Myron, it's
Yeah.
like.
Well, but that's for the infrastructure.
I understand that, but.
Yeah, the binding agreement was for the infrastructure.
So
But
they don't want that anymore. They don't want the infrastructure.
Right.
I understand that, but I'm just telling you, from the lawyer's point of view.
Because this binding agreement would carry over to this switch in the CBDG too. But this binding agreement was signed under the pretense of infrastructure improvements, not equipment purchase.
Well, to be fair, it probably wasn't a pretense at the time, but it's become that way.
Yeah.
As I said, everybody thought it was gonna be hunky-dory until it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, I'll state one more time where I'm at. I don't have a problem if we have the proper guarantee and collateral in place and a start date, a definite start date on the payback of the lease. But if it's the majority feeling that we just say we're not interested in the grant at all for equipment purchase.
Well, when are they, according to this contract, when are they supposed to have the job started?
I don't know,
Because
I don't know that there was a date in this agreement, Marty, on the jobs.
And it
But
says
there-
if it doesn't create the
But there is,
55 jobs, then it's repayment by the participating party at the rate of $18,000 per job not created.
yeah,
So they had to pay the state back that much more.
yeah.
We even considered signing, where we, it was signed for the, infrastructure.
Oh, no, back in August of 2020, if we'd have been talking about equipment purchase, we would have had this discussion back in July before we ever done this in August. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Infrastructure and equipment purchase are completely different situations.
There have been an entirely different conversation almost a year ago.
Yeah,
I don't think we ever got this on.
Well, we've got email correspondence from the industrial board attorney, Buddy Leach, that I'm reading here.
right. And then what I gave you last week was another correspondence from
Right,
the industrial board attorney.
What I would like to see,
For
because
what it's
this
worth,
is,
I agree with Buddy's assessment.
Yes.
right, since this is basically dealing with industrial board is spearheading things like this, I'd like to see it. I mean, are they talking about just changing from the wastewater improvements on Steel Road to equipment? Is that the only thing they're talking about changing on this contract?
Yep.
I'm taking it from his correspondent, he's not comfortable with
Oh, no,
doing
no.
this.
And here's what happens, just so everyone has full disclosure. The county has to apply for the grant. Any money that comes, we get, and it passes right through us to the industrial authority. The industrial authority actually purchases the equipment, and then the business owner is to make lease payments back to the authority. If the industrial authority, if the business owner ceases those payments or becomes insolvent, then the county is on the hook to cover whatever costs have not been paid at that point.
Basically, the industrial authority facilitates it, but we're on the hook for it.
Right, we're the ones making the application and on the hook.
We got two attorneys saying they didn't think we ought.
We have two attorneys saying that we should at least have some type of collateralization and a start date with paying the lease back. Would you advise that we get completely out, or that we have these items in place to proceed?
My apologies, Myron, but if, between the two, I would probably recommend trying to get security and also start the payments, because,
Let's rephrase that word trying. We either will get it or it won't happen.
yeah, I'm just saying, what I'm getting at is, if we pull out altogether, I think that opens up a whole new can of worms. Who who knows, if we impose these conditions, he may pull out. And so, I'm just saying, my job is to try to avoid exposure of a legal kind to this body and to the citizens of Simpson County. And I think we're less likely to have exposure. Not saying we couldn't win, but I'm just saying I'd rather, if I can reasonably avoid a fight and a lawsuit, that's what I usually try to do. There are times it's like, well, that's just why they built the courthouse and we have a lawsuit. But my default setting is if we try to avoid it if you can. And my thinking is between the two options, my recommendation would be, I'm with Buddy on this one. To be fair, I'm also sympathetic to your point of view. It's like, this is not what we bargained for originally. And part of me's thinking, throw up your hands and just say the heck with it. But I don't really think, legally speaking, what I want to do sometimes isn't what I always advise people because of the law. So I think.
Well, what's next, Sam? Will they come back and they want the I honestly don't know how they operate this plant without sewer and water.
I agree with you. I asked that very question to the judge downstairs. And he doing like he is now, kind of shrugging his shoulders.
If you go out there, of course, I'm out that way quite often.
I'm
They
sure.
just pull the stakes up and all the equipment, everything's gone. Signs gone, equipment's gone.
And I hear you, and it would not surprise me, one of the reasons this guy got his back up, because he realized that, if he had to put money in himself, either he didn't have it or it would,
I think Sam's assessment, from my conversation yesterday, I think Sam's assessment is probably so. If these requirements are imposed, I'm not sure where this will head.
I think, it sounds like he's gonna back up like old Gray from a sinkhole. And so, but I think from our point of view, that's his problem. Then that's his problem. He wants to back out then, but I think none of these are good choices. I'm trying to give you what I think is the least bad option. And the least bad option, I think, at this point, based on what I've seen and what I've been told and my understanding of things, is that we impose these conditions on him to try to cover our backside, so to speak, and the people's backside, and then say, the ball's in your court, sir. You can do this or do what you want to do, but if you're wanting us to, help you buy your equipment, you're going to have to pony up.
So how can you write a grant? And you have to be, I'm assuming, very specific when you write for a grant. I'm assuming that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
If you have a grant that's written up for very specific sewer and water, how can you take that grant and roll that over in equipment? I'm just asking.
Well, it's a plan, and I can't fully explain it all, Myron, but it's a plan that the state started a few years back to incentivize small business startups so that they could get these. They're called grants, which is technically not a good name because they are a low interest payback type deal. But it was to incentivize small businesses that maybe didn't or couldn't get the operating capital to get started. The state would put this money out under certain guidelines of numbers of people that have to be employed and so on and so forth. But the risk, and it was easy for the state to put that out because the risk is on the county.
Well, yeah.
And because I asked that question downstairs, I said, well, wait a minute. The grant was, that was applied for. The state said it was for approved it for infrastructure, and now we're talking something, we're talking not apples, but pineapples. And my understanding is the state's already signed off on it.
Yeah, the state has said no problem. We'll change gears and go this direction.
They don't, like I said, don't have a stake in it.
That's what I said. It's easy for the state to say that because we're the ones on the hook.
Well, all I'm contract hasn't been written up, so until we get something that's actually written up with those wordings in it, we really don't have anything to vote on today. Other
Well,
than
the only,
we can say we can,
the only vote today, and I think it would be wise to vote by the court, is that if we're going to have a contract, we're gonna state some specific things that will be in that contract.
okay.
Or, you know, if he is,
Or that you just say, I'm out.
I'm out.
And his plan to, how he's gonna get the water to, I mean, what good's it gonna do him to buy all this stuff if he can't afford to put the water? It's-
As I
I
said,
wasn't in on the beginning of this deal. I come into this deal midstream, and,
as I said, least bad option.
yeah. So I think we need one or two votes today. We either need a vote that we will move forward with certain language in the contract, or we just pull out.
So now moving forward would be, like you said, if we suggest those things that you said, put the ball in their court.
Well, what we would do at that point is we would ask the county attorney and the industrial authority attorney to draft that contract.
Right.
With those, at least those specific guidelines in it, and any other thing that they thought was prudent to protect Simpson County.
But even at that point, we haven't agreed on doing it. We just agree on them putting it in the contract and seeing what the other side is going to say.
Yeah, because it's a very good possibility. They look at that contract and say, we're done, we're walking out.
But even if they agree to it, it's still in our court to say yea or nay.
Yeah, we would still have to authorize the signing of the contract.
Yeah. Well, if we don't pull out today, that would be the only other option, is to have it drawn up and then present it to them to see what they say. And then we still have the final say so.
Yeah.
You know, if they pull out, okay, it's over with. But if they agree, then we still at the point that we at now, but at least we will feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that there are more stakes that's there.
Then I guess you need a motion to authorize the county attorney and industrial board attorney to draw up a contract with the requirements of guaranteeing sureties on the amount that they get the grant or low interest loan for.
Yeah, and at least establishing a beginning payback date on the lease.
Exactly.
My suggestion, we'll leave this to the attorneys, my suggestion is that needs to happen at least within 90 days, which is what the industrial authority attorney says in his,
Yeah, he said 60 to 90, but
Yeah.
90 is probably more fair to him, so.
So moved.
All right, so we got a motion by Marty to authorize the county attorney and the industrial authority attorney to draft an agreement, contract with these certain stipulations as we've laid out. We'd need a second on that.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No,
All right, so the motion's 4-1. Okay. All right. We will move on to budget discussion. Hopefully that'll be more fun than the grant discussion. Okay. Let's take the copy, some of you got it yesterday, some of you picked it up this morning. Let's take the copy and we'll go through, Nicole will help us as much as possible as we get through this budget discussion. I think the biggest thing that we need to all try to get a hold of or grasp here is we need to try to iron this out today so that we're able to have a first reading of a budget ordinance next week at our regular meeting. So the first glaring thing is the school board SRO resource officer. This is a position that we had, the sheriff had been discussing with the school, and I I think the sheriff and the school have come to an agreement. The city wanted to back out of it. Obviously, let me see where that one paper is. I give all of y'all a copy. You got a copy that looks like this right here. You have a sheet that looks like this. And this is probably the most important sheet of the current agreement that the school has with the city. And what you see highlighted is all financial responsibilities of the county and the city of Franklin with regard to the SRO will abate from the period of December 31 of 2011 through December 31 of 2021. But at the termination of that agreement, the arrangements regarding a school resource officer shall revert to its pre-December 31, 2011 status, and you see what was happening there and what the county's obligation is there. Of course, the city at that point will no longer have the SRO, so those numbers will invert. They'll have to be adjusted for, number one, the inflation and cost of a 10-year time frame from when that contract was to when this one would be. And honestly, and I'll let the sheriff speak to this if he recalls, I think that even when we go back to what I'll call the old style contract, I think the school will be able to do a little more than what they had previously been doing. Is that what you understood?
You had those discussions, but yes, that was.
Yeah, okay. So, but from this fiscal year going forward in July, when school starts back, and I forget, the sheriff could tell you the exact date that the SRO would be required, but it's sometime late July to be on campus, right?
School starts back, I don't know, it's like August or 12. We need time to prepare. I mean, the date would be set by me, but yeah, he would start probably in July.
But anyway, through from this point till December 31 of 2021, the school will be covering 100% of the cost of the SRO during the school year, which will reflect in this amount of money coming into our budget from the school.
Judge, begging the court's pardon, may I be excused?
Yes, sir, you sure can. So the next line that's highlighted, you see, I think that that number, the cash transfer out to the jail went down $40,000 some dollars, and we'll get to that when we get to the jail's side of the budget. The next page, it shows the highlighted things of the sheriff's salaries, any changes from the previous. And that reflection is completely an oversight on my part about the SRO part. The sheriff already has someone hired to take the SRO's place. But these numbers are bigger, but that's why this $50-some thousand is plugged in on the revenue side. It's coming in to help offset some of that.
It's kind of sort of like a wash.
So it's kind of just a pass-through deal from the school to the county.
Yeah, basically, we're paying for the SRO, and at the end of the year, and this was done, since this was all done after our budget, it wasn't incorporated in there. A bill will be formed, handed to the school once a year. They'll cut a check that will come to you guys, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So that all of that changed some, as you see onto the next page, even what's highlighted in yellow, changed some of the sheriff's numbers, but most of that is pass-through money. You'll still see as you go to page 3, as you continue to see in the left-hand column, the red amounts are the amounts that we pulled out of the budget from our previous discussion 2 weeks ago. And I'm flipping on, if we don't have a highlight, I'm continuing on. But so where it gets us with roughly the $178,000 that we determined was absolutely coming out of the budget 2 weeks ago, that brought us to like a $6,777 to the good side. These changes reflect here, and part of them will have to get to the reason for some changes in the jail revenue is if the inmate numbers are down to the 260 rather than the 268 that we had budgeted, we went through and took those associated costs and adjusted them to reflect that same number. And the city also plans, you'll see when we get over there, the utility side of that number, the city also plans to give us another $25,000 credit on the utilities as they did last year. So that gets us in this budget to the plus side of $58,548. As I noted in a note that I sent out to you guys last week, had all things been equal and all costs been up, meaning retirement cost up, the other inmate cost up, but the Class D revenue up and the occupational revenue up, that 58,000 that we're at a plus, if you added the roughly 458,000 in revenue that we're down, would have put us at 516, 548 to the good. So even if you took that 516, and these numbers aren't in front of you, I'm just telling you all this information. If you take that 516 and you backed out the 178 that we cut out 2 weeks ago, and you backed out 124, which would have been the retirement adjustment, this budget would have still ended to the good of just under $215,000.
Could I ask the jailer today what the current population is today?
Jailer, can you enter the report, please?
Thank you, Sheriff. Right now, we're at 216, of which 15 of them are county. So we're at 201 on the state side.
So that's a little better than the last number we had.
Yeah, it was 199, I think.
Yeah.
So we're,
And it's probably going to climb again at the end of the month. I mean,
Climb again?
decline.
the states are going to decline. Now, the local agencies, they're still working, they're still doing their job. They're still taking out, or keeping out the ones that are not pressing. Keep costs off of us as much as they can, which, Sheriff, I'll say again, I appreciate you and your staff, and the city police also. But there's some that we had no choice, they had to bring them in. So those county inmates are slowly making the climb. And like I said, June, July, you can go ahead and prepare. We've had meetings with the judges. I mean, they're doing their best to help us in a bad situation, but they're hands are tied to a certain extent. So it's fixing to climb.
Are you hearing anything, of course, obviously, this pandemic we're in right now, it's gonna carry over to our new fiscal year, there's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. There's been some discussion, I was on call yesterday, there's been some discussion of, possible transports, which, when you start talking about transports, that starts telling me that there's gonna be state inmates available. But now, the state prison's they're gonna get their hands on those state inmates first, because they got a bunch of empty beds. The good thing about it is that the D1s and 2s, the low-level offenders, they're not gonna grab those because they can't. I mean, they're gonna stay spread out across the county jails. So that's a good thing, but we were talking yesterday, I wanna say there's over 1,000 beds in the state pen that are open. They're gonna be pulling those in. They're gonna be pulling them from every county, every county jail across the state. So, it's a bad situation. We're trying to prepare. When they're talking about slowly going into the transports, that's letting me know that other jails, and I know a lot of them, I told y'all, I interact with 90% of them. The other jails are probably gonna be full of county. So if they have any states in that were not able to be transported prior to COVID-19, they're gonna be coming out. Now, are they gonna be going to the state penitentiary,
or are they gonna be going to other jails that's got open beds? If they're D1s and 2s, they're gonna be going to county jails. We're in a fortunate situation, in a bad situation. I don't know how else to explain it, guys. We're trying to get it moving. We're trying to get it moving. I'm gonna tell you something. The big holdup right now, and I've instructed my deputies, Green River is a nightmare right now. That's where it's spreading rapid. And I instructed my staff members, if we start transporting in or bringing in, and anybody's got a tag, I don't care how much money they're worth as far as to the county, if they've got any kind of a tag to Green River, I am not taking them. There will be disciplinary actions if they are brought in. I'm just telling you straight up, because I'm not going to jeopardize 220 people. They're humans. I'm not going to jeopardize their lives over $11,000. I'm not going to do it. So we're being very cautious on what we're bringing in, because if we have an outbreak in Simpson County, guess what? We ain't got a check big enough to cover it. I mean, and it's not going to hit one. When it hits one, it's going to hit 200 of them, because they're so confined. I can't help that. I mean, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to be precautious, and, you know, when they open this up, when they open the transports up, can we bring guys in? Sure, we can bring them in. At what cost?
You still have the center closed.
Sir?
Is the center still?
The center is still closed. We were just actually talking about this yesterday. We're sitting on the verge of opening it back up. I'm getting to the point to where I'm not going to have a choice. 5 inmates, 6 inmates, that's not enough to, I mean, sheriff can tell you, that can happen in 5 minutes, can't it? And it can be 5 that I can't refuse. It can be 5 that's a danger on the street that I have to take. If that happens, the center will be open. And yes, I will be required to bring some of those layoffs back in. I have no choice.
I'm not sure what I was looking at the other day when I stopped to visit Jerry D, but there's a backlog of, I don't guess I.
You were looking at what I'm worried about.
Byron is, we serve the processes of the court. Those are all civil processes. God love you, if Jeannie decided to divorce you, there's a paper that's gotta be served.
Gotcha.
If you get sued, there's a paper that's gotta be served. If you're suing somebody else, eviction, all that has been shut down during this time frame. So papers have not been getting served. Now, that's a revenue getter for the county, because we do have revenue that gets paid every time there's a paper to be served. Byron stopped in the other day, I showed him, we got that many papers to serve some, you know that big wave I told you that would be coming at the sheriff's office? That's one part of that big wave that's coming in, is now we've got 1,000 papers that gotta be served. When the court says go serve them, we can go back out and serve them, but they're just accumulating. That doesn't mean you can't get the paper, it's just not getting served. So prisoner transports is kind of the same way. There'll be a bunch of prisoners that gotta be transported through the sheriff's office. Eric and I both transport prisoners, but they're different functions of when we transport them. We've got a board that will be, but that's the.
But Sheriff,
So I understand
every,
some of those they're actually gonna be county inmates. Some of those out of that big stack of paper are obviously gonna be county inmates.
Could be.
but Sheriff, that's what I was gonna ask, but every one of those papers that need to be served does not equate to someone being put in jail.
That's correct. Most of those papers are civil papers that demand some action in court of a civil process. The people aren't in trouble.
Yeah.
That's why I can take somebody that's not a full police officer and they can go serve papers for me. They're just doing the civil process.
Like, for instance, right now, you guys aren't serving eviction notices.
That's correct.
Yeah. And no one's going to jail. They may get evicted, but they're not going to jail for not paying rent.
That's correct. And they're not getting evicted right now.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Ultimately, they may get evicted, but they're not gonna go to
There
jail.
may be an eviction notice holding that will get served when the court say go serve those papers. That's correct.
So the unknown is,
But I can tell you this, Myron, I'm sorry, it's on the same topic, it's the reason I'm bringing this up. There will be
So
There'll be a big influx coming in.
So Jailer, here's the question, and I know the question I'm gonna ask you is kinda like some of the conversations that Nicole and I've had about the budget. You're just trying to figure out what you think will happen and just have, and plan for where you think we're gonna be. So I'm saying that, we're talking about a budget that begins July 1, okay? So we still have just over half of May and all of June to go through. As we go through another 6 to 7 weeks and we start heading into July, and the court system opens up and other things begin to open and things start getting a little maybe less hectic as it relates to COVID-19, those population numbers will start to grow back as we move into July and August, correct?
That's correct. But when the population grows, it's not gonna grow to what we're accustomed to. We've been accustomed, Marty Chandler's been on the court ever since I've been jailer. We've been accustomed to reaping the benefits of the state.
Yeah. And
That, for 10 years, that's what we've been accustomed to. It's fixing to increase as far as population, but the revenue that we're accustomed to is going to go down because the county inmates cost us.
Right.
The state inmates pay us, the county inmates cost us. The county inmates are coming in. I cannot control that.
Let's word that a little bit differently, I think. We
Yes,
get
sir.
some revenue off the state inmates, but there's still a cost to it.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
So my point to all of this.
As Myron calls them, paying customers.
Yeah, my point to all of this, for not just the court members, but as y'all are aware, I guess I forgot to tell you this, we're streaming live on Facebook now. I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of people are watching us, but we're streaming live right now. The point to all of this is this. We budgeted last year on 268 Class D inmates. We dropped that to 260 for this year, and we dropped the expense side to match that 260. If that number, let's say that number falls and it's 240, well, yeah, the revenue side of it's going to be down from what we've projected, but the appropriation side is also going to be down too. I mean, and there's no way, as you heard the county treasurer say in the last budget meeting, I think we're better, if I understood you correctly, we're better to budget at the 260 and hit 240 and make those adjustments internally as we go than we are to budget the 240 and then hit the 260. It's all, and here's the thing that we have to do. As I don't know what y'all was all talking about when I come in and I heard the county attorney say about something about the jail, you have to pay it. The debt. So, but there's a lot of expenses that we have to pay. And what I trust, and I'm hoping that you guys trust, and I think that the two I'm fixing to mention are also hoping that you trust them, is that our county finance officer and our county treasurer are watching these revenues daily. They're monitoring the money that's in any given line item as POs are being issued. And we're going to have to make sure of a couple of things. We're going to have to make sure that the appropriations are the expenditures are matching the revenue, and they're going to have a handle on that, and we're going to have to tighten those reins as much as we possibly can. But real expense numbers are going to be what they're going to be, period.
Like I said, my concern, and I won't know this until the state opens back up. My biggest concern, and it's a huge concern. I've lost some sleep over this one because I don't know how to get my hands around it. Finding out what the state's going to do and how many they're going to pull, and they're going to fill their beds up. I just don't know how many other jailers across the state. There's not many. I'm going to tell you this: there's not many that has reaped the benefits that we've reaped over the last 10 years because we handle the majority of state inmates versus our counties. We have been fortunate, and I know Myron has done his homework because he's talked to other jailers at these conventions and stuff. I think you have too. Y'all know that we've been sitting in a fortunate spot, and with that being said, when the state pulls to fill those 1,000 beds, we got a majority of state inmates in the facility. So where are they going to grab from? Well, right here's a pot in Simpson County. Let's take them.
As much as no one likes to have this conversation, I don't, my understanding anyway of jail, from being at several conferences and talking not just jailers, but to the people that are doing these sessions in these conferences, if we think that we're gonna open up a jail and we're gonna make money on that jail, it's just not gonna happen. The best thing that we can hope for is to get through.
Lessen the burden.
What is it, about 20 months? Are we about 20 months out? Is that about where we're at on the bond payment?
Something like that. 23?
20 or
The
22?
big one pays off September of 2022, and the smaller one is June of 2023. And you'll see at the bottom of your note section on the jail card, all that information.
Yeah, so what we have to do is, we get to that point, we are in a much better position. And I mean, and I know that this number that's on this paper has people's heads spinning, but we have to realize we appropriated 675 in this current fiscal year, and it's closer to 890.
I think I told y'all it was going to be there.
For the record too, the $42,000 that we authorized in the last meeting, only 10,000 of that had to be transferred.
Thank you
Well,
for mentioning that.
also,
And that's what we
just,
look at, I mean, we only transfer what is gonna be needed and projected ahead until you all meet again.
just so the public understands, and I'm rounding numbers off, but we got about $400,000 transfer money in that will serve the debt.
Yeah, that's straight for the building.
But getting back to, I think a few weeks ago, you and I were talking, I don't know what the magic number, you still got 9 people laid off?
Yes, sir. We haven't hired anybody back.
Okay, so-
And we're not going to until that center opens
If you
up.
open the center back up.
We're going to bring at least 4,
You're gonna have 4 of those people right back.
at least, minimum.
So those 9 people in the center, does it have to be at full capacity before you bring all 9 back?
No, sir. No, sir. It has to have, it can have one inmate down there. You've got to have a certain number to manage an inmate in that part of the building. Whether it's 1, whether it's 60.
So if you bring back 10, I'm just gonna use 10, you're gonna bring back 4 people.
Yes, sir, but Myron, and I understand where you're going with this. If you've been in the facility, it's broken into sections. So, and classifications. This is a complex deal over there. What we'll do is, if we get to the point where we have to open the center, I'll ship probably 60 back down to the center, because they're all classified the same, and they can live and be housed in the same area, versus where we're having to watch certain ones back here in the secured part and separating them. Does that make sense?
I just guess in my mind, I'm trying to figure out what's the magic number when you'll bring back those 9, all that you're.
223.
223.
223.
So we're
That,
within 3.
1 over 223, it's gonna be open.
So
I mean-
when we do that, our appropriations goes up.
Yes, sir.
So you have to call them all back. Once you reach 223, the whole.
I don't have to call all 9 back
He said
because
4.
certain one,
4 of them.
it'd be
No,
4.
no, my question was, is when, to get the 9 back in.
What number
Where
do
will
you-
that number be?
To get the 9 back in, we're gonna have to be back at full capacity
Okay.
and rolling.
Okay, so we're back at
Yes.
260 or 266 or whatever.
Well, now, one of those, I mean, is our chaplain, which he's gonna have to come back regardless. We have life happen and death happen all the time with their families and stuff. That's what he's responsible for. That's what he's trained in and how to handle, because you got some mental health stuff, situations that fall into that, so. But right now, he's been very gracious and just kind of helping us out to get through crunches, so. But 4 working deputies, 4 floor deputies, once the center's open, once we hit that 223 number, yes, it is gonna be back open, and I'll have to have at least 4 certified deputies on that floor.
Of course, and I don't know if y'all are aware of this, the federal government appropriated $1.7 billion to the state of Kentucky. They earmarked 133 million of that directly to the city of Louisville, and the other 1.56 billion will go to the state with a percentage of that to be appropriated to counties to offset some of their revenue loss. So here's the thing about that. How much of that 1.56 billion will Simpson County receive? We may not know. It may be the end of the year or the first of next year before we know that number. But, you know, our hope is that we at least get some of that money. We don't know what it'll be. You know, looking at this budget, am I tickled to death with this budget? My answer to that's gonna be both yes and no. The no part is because, you know, we're gonna end up carrying over a few $100,000 into our surplus at the end of this fiscal year. The steps we took last year were designed to do the same, and where it looks like we could have and probably should have been able to carry over a couple of $100,000 for this next fiscal year. At the very best, it may be $50,000. So in that regard, I'm not too happy with it, but given all things considered, I don't think we're in near as bad a situation as a lot of counties are gonna be.
Yeah, I kept,
And if we are able to generate, and about the only way we can do that is, what I would suggest that you guys do is start contacting Senator Givens, and then the primary winners of the June election for the state representative, we already know who is on the Democrat side, because there's only one contender that I'm aware of. I think there's 4 or 5 on the Republican side, but whoever wins that Republican nomination, I would start bending that guy's ear and the Democrat guy's ear to, hey, when you get there, we need some help. And it wouldn't hurt to talk to Wilson Stone in the interim, because something could happen before his time runs out at the end of this year. We don't know what that time frame would be, but our best hope of getting any portion of the 1.56 billion that's left to go throughout the state is to start lobbying our state legislators to say, hey, we need to be specific. Hey, we lost nearly $500,000, and it sure as heck be nice if we could get at least that much back.
and just like you said, for a bad situation, Simpson County is probably in one of the better of the worst situations across the state. I mean, that's just a fact.
So the bigger changes were some things that we accounted for in the Class D population, that we needed that to reflect the same. Obviously, if we get back to a 268, some of those appropriations will increase, but so will the revenue.
Judge, if you don't mind, that 268 number, y'all know what happened to us at the beginning of the year.
I know.
I don't even think that's a realistic number.
Oh, we're not there. That's
Okay,
not
because
what we have.
it's not. We've tried, even after we got cut, we've tried to fudge everything we could to hit that 268 number, and I think, well, we're average around 265, 264.
Usually, prior budget's been 266.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're just,
And that's why we even backed it off of that a little bit.
okay. I heard that 268
Yeah,
number, I was
I
like,
know.
that's not realistic.
Yeah, we backed it off of that some.
And I know that to be a fact because I've tried. I've really tried to hit that 268. It can't do it. I can't do it.
So the two things on the budget, of course, the sheriff's car is still plugged in, and you know, what we have to find out today is where we're at with a budget that at least 3 of the 5 people sitting here will vote affirmative on.
Am I good?
You're done for now.
Okay.
Nicole, Nicole, can I ask you a question? I know the Mason, Eric, Jerry D, and Jolene all get paid the same by state based off population. They all got 2.3% increase in salary. But Mason's salary increased by about $4,000, while everybody else has increased by about $2,000.
Well, he's lower in steps.
Okay.
The other ones have been in their time to get to that 4th step. Mason will only be at.
See, I get a step and then that increase.
Yeah, he gets a step up until he reaches that maximum, yeah. So that's the changing his, but we get all that from the state.
Yeah, I knew it all come from the state, but it just,
In what they tell us.
right.
But that's the difference in him, he goes up a step.
And for the record, the county judge's salary at the current time is not as much as the jailer and the sheriff and the clerk.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's close, but not there.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, us 4 masters sitting up here are the only ones that I know of in the county that actually took a $1,200 a year cut in pay.
Took a what?
$1,200 a year cut in pay.
How's that?
We lost $100 a month.
For the expense.
Which that matches the state. of what the
I
state-
understand, but I want people to know that while there's a lot of talk about raises and all, that we actually took a cut in pay.
And of course, so did the,
Jolene, Clark did too.
they took it 1 year prior to you all.
Yeah, we took that cut last year.
Jailer took one too.
Yeah, and the jail, he gets paid by the state as well, sorry.
Of course, I also, while we're all stating what's going on for the record, I also don't take the fringe training money because I feel like that we all have a salary set that we get paid. The county pays for our travel to and from the facility. The county pays for our registration. The county pays for our hotel. They pay for any meal that's not associated with it. And I don't feel good about taking the fringe training money.
I can't speak for any other magistrates, but I can tell you that I feel like I'm earning every penny I get, every cent. I may be
Well, I'm not questioning
doing
that.
more than I should be doing, but I can tell you, I spend several hours a week, and I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy it, but getting on to the budget, this budget, what I picked up this morning, it reflects a 2% increase.
Well, a split 2%.
And then something that I picked up this morning that I have not never seen, is our merit pay. We discussed that we were going to come up with a plan, but these merit raises were integrated into this budget before any of us guys even used that. We had been talking about it for a year and a half. But speaking for Myron, it popped up with me today. And we've got, as of today, we've got 3 adjusted budgets. And the past prior to, there was nothing mentioned about merit.
Well, it was given to you at the very first one.
And
At the very,
this is what you requested.
yeah,
Yeah, but we've not been a part of any of the merit. I mean, where do these numbers come from? I mean, somebody just pull these numbers out of a hat? I don't, today is the first dollar amount, the money, this is the first day I've seen this. I don't know about the rest of the guys, this is the first. I've been asking ever since, actually before we actually took office. Mason and I discussed this. We need job descriptions, we need minimum start-out pay, we need maximum, we need merits if you've got a job that you could get a merit raise. We discussed this back in December of, actually 18.
well, I can tell you what you're looking at there is, we had a county treasurer leave in October. We transitioned a finance officer to the county treasurer position, hired a new county finance officer. And I personally feel like where we're at there, and I'll be glad to put together what I think we should be stepwise to get there. I don't think either one of these salary requests are unreasonable for the additional work that's been put there. And the other is the emergency management director request, and I'm trying to honor that request because I see the importance of that role. The rest of what you're looking at there is a split 2%, a 1% for the first half of the year, and then adding another 1% in the second half of the year. Now, the jail and the sheriff both have merit raises that are built into that you don't see spelled out individually there based on time. So that's what you're seeing, but everything that you're looking at in that budget today, I mean, the only employee numbers that are different in this budget you're looking at today from the two previous ones you've looked at is just where we made the reflection for the school resource officer and what that done to the sheriff's side.
The first budget we had, if you add the increase in the merit, the numbers are not changing, they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
It was not spelled out in this first budget, it just
Well,
was.
I absolutely handed you a sheet that explained what was happening in there. You had a budget assumption sheet that.
Well, all I'm telling you, today is the first day I've seen the merit, and I don't have a problem with merit raising, none whatsoever. Today is the first time I've seen dollar amounts put on the merit.
And I can assure you of this, if I didn't think that they were justifiable, I wouldn't request it. We talk a lot about personnel, and we talk a lot about the expense of personnel, and we talk a lot about we need to cut this, we need to cut that. I've said this a lot privately, so I'm gonna go ahead and say this here publicly so everyone can hear this. When I ran to be county judge in 2018, I knew that the way we were funding the retirement was not going to work, and I knew the way we were funding 911 was not going to work. And I also knew that some of those things should have been addressed prior to 2018. And I knew that it would be tough to get there. What I also know in the time that I've been here, as I've gone through past budgets and looked at what we're spending money on and what we're doing, I can't pull back through the budgets and look at anything and say, oh, they were just wasting money left and right here. I didn't find that. What I found is that we weren't doing a good job of keeping up with the increased cost of everything. And we're gonna have to do a better job if we're gonna continue to survive. I think there has been no waste going on. I couldn't walk in here and say, oh, I think for the last 20 years, the former judge and administrations were wasting money. There was no indication, no sign of that whatsoever. I don't see anything like that. But I will say this too. I think our number one resource that we have are our people. And I'll be the first one to tell people if they're doing a good job, I'll let you know you're doing a good job, and I will promise you this. This is why there's some people that don't care much for me, but I will promise you this. If you're doing a sorry job, I'll be the first person to tell you you're doing a sorry job. But if we don't take care of the people that we have, and I get it, believe me, it's not like I just got involved in local politics. This is 10 years in, dealing with budgets, dealing with personnel, dealing with tax revenue, and I get that we are doing everything we do off of tax dollars. But there are things that the public expects, and it takes people to produce those results. And you're going to get the people that you deserve. And right now, we have very good people, that do a very good job. I don't think that we have one person that is overpaid. In fact, I think we have several positions that we need to work to start getting caught up. I'll be glad to fix you a breakdown for, internally here. I think Bobby may have some things for the road department. I'm sure the chief can put something together for the fire department. I'll be glad to provide something here, but I don't see, I feel very justified in what we're looking at raise-wise here for our employees. I want to provide the best that we can for the community and do it as inexpensively as we can, but we can't provide something good to the employees or the citizens if we don't have good employees to do it with. And I can tell you this, when it comes time to hiring in any position, I don't want the bottom of the barrel employee, I want the cream of the crop. And that's where I think we're at. I feel good about this budget as best as I can based on where we're at. I'd feel a lot better if everything was a little better, if the whole COVID-19 thing hadn't happened, we'd just trucked right along and revenue had stayed where it would. Heck yes, I'd feel a heck of a lot better.
That's what
about
I'm
it.
looking at, Mason. I mean,
But
our
we're,
economy is not gonna bounce back at the same rate that it closed at. And I wish, I hope it does, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
it probably won't, but we're looking at this budget based on that.
Well, you know, of course, I'm not a part of the budget process. I'm just one of 5 people who's gonna vote to make certain that the funding's there. That's, you know, of course, we took, as everybody knows, we took a pretty good increase on health insurance this
We
year.
did.
You know, and of course, we took a pretty good hit on our occupational tax this year.
We did.
The coronavirus, obviously, and other contributing factors has played a major part in the jail revenue this year.
It did.
It started, actually, when we first saw was back shortly after we started our new fiscal year, we had an influx of county inmates, so we had to get rid of some of our cash paying customers. There's been an array of things that's happened in 2020 that we hope they don't happen again. As far as the employees goes, I have no beef about anything. I'm just, for this year, for our next fiscal year, because we've got some unknowns right now about, there's 2 things we got a lot of unknowns, but we got unknowns about occupational tax. We got unknowns, especially about our jail, because we don't know how our population's gonna be.
And this budget has $0 figured in for retirement, for pension.
So, you know.
It's got every penny factored in for the retirement.
It
Not
doesn't
if
have
we
a
got that
12%
12%
increase.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever put a budget together where you are trying to cover the cost of this year's retirement and next year's retirement?
I've never had them freeze the retirement, but yeah, we've put budgets together
Or
every year.
you have had them freeze the retirement. It started back in 2017, when something should have been done then. And they said, we're going to pause it now. They didn't move forward. And we knew it was coming in 2018, and it did come, and still nothing was done. The increase hit us, and nothing was done. And this time last year, and I'm gonna be like the sheriff now, I'm not mad because I get excited about things. This time last year, you were saying you didn't even think that retirement deal was real.
No, I said the numbers could be wrong,
Well, the numbers haven't been wrong.
but what, and then.
But my point being, we
Occupational
are
tax
absolutely
rate was
funding the
passed.
retirement right now, and when we get the increase that we'll have to cover next year, yes, we'll have to fund it next year, but you're not in a fiscal year budget, you're not covering 2 years of retirement in one fiscal year budget.
All I'm saying is, an occupational tax increase was passed, earmarked for retirement,
It absolutely was.
and it has generated over $500,000 in increased revenues, and the carryover is $400,000. More money has been spent than what we're bringing in. And we have provided no new services.
But you fail to understand that the cost of all of these things have increased, that
I
it's out of our
understand
control.
cost. I understand cost a lot.
Okay.
3 years ago, the jail was operating at less than $500,000, and you've got.
On paper on
950.
that budget, but that's not what that budget ended up.
That was transfer
It-
in.
Huh?
That was transfer in, 100%. It's right there in black and white.
You're saying 3 years ago,
Budget year 17-18. Right there it is, 480,097 transfer in. And well, in this budget, it's 956,000 transfer in.
But look at the surplus too, because the surplus is also at 218, so that makes
Mhm.
well, I guess here's the thing. Here's where I'm at with this budget. I like what's in front of us. I absolutely, and I'm gonna go on record to say this today, I absolutely will not vote for any budget other than this one we're looking at. So if there's changes that need to be made, I need you guys to let me know what they are, and then we need to know that 3 of you will vote for it. Because this is the budget that I propose, and this is the budget that I think needs to be passed for this county. So if you don't like the employee raises, if you don't like the jail numbers, and you don't like the sheriff's car, then we need to know it, and we need to know it now. We need to know where at least 3 of you are at, because this is the budget that I think makes the most sense and is the best for our county right now.
I'll tell you where I'm at on the sheriff's car. You already know, I think we gotta have one after I met with Jerry D last week and he gave me a schedule. I kinda got a little bit better idea about the car. I think the car is definitely needed. The way I see it, Jerry D's going to have, I'm not planting a seed, but for the next several years, he's going to have 2 cars a year. That's
I
just the
think
way
so,
I see
too.
it, okay? The employees, now I've been thinking about this for some time. Everybody deserves a raise. But we went through some unprecedented times this year. I was hoping we could have a 1% increase across the board with every employee. Everybody gets, the dollar amounts is gonna be different, but the percentage will be the same. And then, and like I said, it doesn't upset me, I just hadn't seen the numbers. But our merit raises, I would have liked to have been a part of that, or at least known about it. And let's try to, let's put this in our administrative code so we all got it down pat. And we start these new merit raises. We start them, we integrate this into next year's budget, not this year, but 21, 22. Because
That's what
we did
I'm
take-
asking y'all to tell me. Now, I'm
We
telling
did-
you, I won't vote for that budget.
That's fine,
but-
Lisa, I'm not gonna vote for the one we got here now, that's perfectly fine, I'm just trying to get to a common ground.
So y'all tell me, you think it's funny, you figure it out. Tell me
But,
something, tell me what you
but,
want.
I'm not, I'm just laughing at the.
Yeah, I don't think anything about what's going on in here is funny. I think
No,
it's
it's
ridiculous and pathetic. So that's what I'm at. So what you want 1% across the board, period.
Yeah, just for this year.
Okay.
Just for this year. Everything else, I mean, I look at the jail budget, the jail can't help it, you take the road fund out, they're a third of our county budget.
Well, here's all I need to know. Okay, let's just start with you, since you're talking, Myron, let's just start with you. Other than that, what do you want to see done different in this budget?
Anything else in that budget?
Anything else in here you want
I
different
told
than?
you that was it.
That's it. All right. So here's where we're at now, because I mean, y'all both know, I'm not voting for that because I think we're gonna be easily be able to give the merit raises that are justifiable and justified to do so. And I think we can make the other 1% increase come January 1. So,
We're not arguing, we're just not
no,
agreeing.
we're just
I
talking.
don't agree with what you're
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
there, and obviously,
That's
not
fine.
with me, but that's perfect.
But what we have to know today is what at least 3 of these 5 people will vote
I
on
think
next
that's,
week.
you made that very clear, you need
'Cause
3
we got-
votes, so, I
yeah.
mean, whatever.
So what, Scott, what do you wanna say?
Well, I'd like to see a little bit less on this deal, but if we could. Now, where are we gonna end up? Nicole, you said somewhere around 90, this year around 900,000
Oh, for the transfer in?
transfer in.
Well, I mean, that's what we projected here on this budget, but of course, it'll all depend on all the other alternatives of what that Class D number looks like, so, we're just gonna have to see. But, I mean, and I understand this is higher than what, previous budgets have been, but, and the biggest difference is gonna be your surplus number is a lot different from previous years, as well as that Class D number. But the transfer money in will only happen, you know, as it's needed, and, I mean,
That's the way it's all.
yeah, and if somebody has the
Is evidently
interest
675
of county
wasn't enough.
inmates and how much money, I would gladly love to know that. So,
Yeah.
But we didn't have a carryover, we didn't have
No.
any carryover, none, nothing. So, that was what,
And I mean,
178
that's the
grand?
whole point about the jail appropriation is just gonna be what it is to cover expenses.
That's, yeah,
I mean,
I agree with you there.
But, and you also said before we started that 675, that was gone before the COVID, all the mess
yeah,
started.
because of the, I mean, this unexpected deal with the county inmates that's coming in. I mean, we were usually, you know, projecting off of about 35 to 40 county inmates, and, I mean, we well exceeded that at the first of the fiscal year that nobody projected or didn't fill me in on any of it except.
Well, it's spiked up, what, near in the
We
80s?
got up to 72 county inmates at one time.
So, and I mean,
Whether we feel like we're probably gonna get back to that once the courts open back up, but we just don't know how far.
And then some.
of course, the one thing, you know, Judge Crocker did she took some steps to try to help keep that number down, and I think all of that will stay in place too.
We had a conversation on that yesterday, and yes, that's correct. She's gonna work with us too.
and if the jail suggests, you know, if the 260 number, if that needs to be readjusted, I mean, you all just give us some insight, but I just don't wanna get to the point where we get into an amendment problem.
I feel like you were correct in saying that, set it at 260, and it comes at 240, that we can communicate together and adjust the expense down as it goes, because it's much easier to do that than it is to try to amend money.
Yeah, because I mean, we won't be able to amend until the latter part of the fiscal year, until we get all of that revenue in.
And it's not like we don't communicate 2 or 3 times a week.
A lot.
Well, I guess it's better to maybe have it there and not need it.
Well, and we've already seen, you know, with
We've already
less
spent
inmates coming in, I mean,
$900,000
we got utilities that are coming down. You've all adjusted your personnel
I
costs.
see that.
So that affects, you know, across the board, things, and, I mean, we've seen an adjustment in the food, I mean, it's, you know, tracking lower in April, so, I mean, we're seeing those, with the lower inmates, those correlated expenses are also adjusting.
And I won't have a problem with the sheriff's car. He thinks he needs it, I'm not here to tell him that he doesn't need it. But with the uncertainty of what we have, this is gonna bring forth after July. We may need to stick with that 1% pay raise across the board this year,
No merit raise.
no merit raise.
Nate?
after looking at all this and hearing everybody, you know, the sheriff's car, you know, I'm for that one, because, if it go down to one this year, next year, I really don't see no 3 cars. But next year, we get one this year. So I'm all for the second car of the sheriff, that's a given. Now, the jail budget, that's a hit or miss, like everybody been saying about the numbers. That's something we can't control, we can't predict. You know, the courts lie where to fall at. Now, on the employee raises, I hear what the judge said. It's a split raise, 1% and 2% after the first year. And he feels that it would be better January 1. Well, no one ever thought that this virus was going to take place this year. At least I know I didn't. So trying to predict after January 1st things will be better, I predict it'll probably be a lot worse after all this comes down. Once everything peaks after this year, it will probably hit us more next year than this year. So I'm all for 1% now and after the first year of the employee raises across the board. And if everything pans out next year, you know, good, and then maybe next year it can increase employee raises. But right now we can just go on with what we have at hand. And then at hand, you know, that we are facing something that ain't nobody on this earth has ever faced before. A lot of uncertainty with this virus. And it's not just the virus that's out there, there's other things that can come into play also. So I'm for the 1% raise across the board
For the entire year, no merit raise.
for the entire year. Yeah.
No merit raise.
No merit raise.
Right.
I'm gonna agree with them on the raises, but I still think we're transferring in too much into jail. And I did suggest about the sheriff's car, that, I'm fine with it either way, but I was just thinking at this point here, you know, he's already getting one that's coming in, and he's getting another that's coming. That's the only reason I suggested it. It doesn't, he's gonna need the car whether he gets it this year or next year, so that's fine, but, that's the only reason I suggested that.
Well, if I had a fix-all for transferring less money to the jail, I would implement that fix-all. I don't know what that is. I mean, there's certain things that just have to be done, and we gotta cover the cost of them. But if everybody here is saying that the employees will only get a 1% raise for the full year and no merit raises, it looks like if we pull that out, this budget will pass 4-1, and I feel bad about that, but I guess it is what it is. Any other discussion?
But I would hope everybody understands that the county, I don't know the percentage, I mean, maybe Nicole can tell me, the county absorbed the bulk of the increase of health insurance this year, the bulk of it.
I mean, the health insurance, I mean, with the raise and the additional cost for the employees' health insurance, it will cover the standard plan 100% plus.
Well, but there will be cost to the employees in standard and premium plan both. The standard plan employee will lose a little money that they were getting, and the premium plan employee will have to increase their contribution. But your assessment is correct. Of the increase, of the 9.5% increase, the county is covering the bulk of that increase for the employees' insurance.
So yes, I mean, it'd probably be.
Yeah, I don't know what that, I'd have to put the numbers to it based on what all it is, what the percentage is. But yeah, that's true. And here's the thing, I think the employees understand and appreciate that.
Oh, I do.
But while they understand and appreciate it, it doesn't put another dollar in their pocket to buy groceries and pay utility bills either.
Yeah, but it does help when you've got an employer that pays almost all of your health insurance,
No question there.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
if
our
we
health
gotta pass
insurance-
that on,
Yeah,
It's costing the county
They wouldn't like that,
ten
sure.
thousand
no,
four
no,
hundred
no
forty
question
dollars.
there.
Yeah.
Any other comments, concerns, or questions? So am I hearing that if that gets changed, if the raise get changed, that all four of you will vote in favor of this budget?
I will, because the jail, we got to transfer in.
Gotta do it.
we've almost
It doesn't
transferred
matter.
that much
It
in
doesn't
this year.
matter. I mean, I
Stuff
hope
just
that
goes
things
up,
will.
Ron. If y'all work on it. It's a no-win. I mean, I don't understand how you figure it out. You can't.
Yes, at this point.
Yeah.
Am I understanding correctly? I mean, we need to know before we leave here, because we gotta have first reading next week.
Yes, that's what I agree to.
Okay. All right, all I need is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second by Scott, all in favor? Aye. I'm sure no one's opposed to that.